Ever since its construction circa the 12th or 13th century, England's historic Mermaid Inn has played host to a wide array of guests, some of whom allegedly remain there to this day, centuries after their deaths. Some visitors have reported seeing a lady in white moving about the inn, passing through closed doorways and occasionally standing at the foot of their beds. Others say they've seen the apparition of a man walking through walls, sometimes with women or children in tow. In 2002, a camera crew visited the Mermaid Inn and captured floating orbs on film. Then, a year later, a psychic medium held a seance in room 15, during which her voice started to change inexplicably and the spectral figures of a man and a dog suddenly entered the room. One guest at the seance said they reached out and felt the dog's fur. Next door, in room 16, patrons have claimed to have witnessed a duel between two ghostly men, a clash that ends with one man defeated, dragged into the adjacent room, and thrown through a trapdoor into the cellar. Room 17, meanwhile, is named for Thomas Kingsmill, a leader of the infamous Hawkhurst gang, who once made the Mermaid Inn their secondary base of operations. It's said the room is haunted by the spirit of a woman who had been married to another of the Hawkhurst gang leaders, Arthur Gray. On occasion, the room would become icy cold, and a rocking chair in the corner would rock all on its own. And the Hawkhurst gang may have been responsible for the presence of another ghost at the Mermaid Inn as well, that of a young maid who had been dating one of the gang's smugglers. Fearing that she knew too much, the Hawkhurst gang murdered the poor woman, dooming her spirit to be forever trapped within the walls of the inn. Nevertheless, the inn's current owner, Judith Blinkow, said she hasn't experienced any of these paranormal phenomena herself, but stories from the guests and staff have convinced her that it is indeed haunted. And if any location were to be haunted, the Mermaid Inn would most certainly fit the bill. It has stood in the same spot for nearly 800 years, although it was once burned to the ground and later rebuilt, and in that time has seen a large number of guests pass through its doors. The Mermaid Inn's rich and sometimes violent history is excellent fodder for a ghost story or two. From the fire that destroyed the nearby port of Rye in 1377 to the murders committed by members of the Hawkhurst gang, the Mermaid Inn has seen more than its fair share of ghastly incidents. Who knows? Maybe it really is haunted. You're listening to History Uncovered, brought to you by the digital publisher All That's Interesting, where we explore the uncharted corners of the natural world and the world past. I'm All That's Interesting staff writer Austin Harvey.
And I'm All That's Interesting staff writer Kalina Fraga.
And today we're exploring the story of the historic Mermaid Inn and the alleged hauntings that occur there. So I know your opinion on aliens.
Uh-huh.
I know you're a bit of a skeptic in that regard, but where do you stand on ghosts?
I believe in ghosts.
You believe in ghosts? So you're more on ghosts than on aliens?
Yeah. Is that weird?
That is a bit strange.
I think it's because I grew up in like a really old house, and there's nothing like specific happened, but we always felt like there was like a ghost in the house, and that was like part of our childhood. Interesting. Yeah. I've never had any weird paranormal experiences of any kind. Ever.
Never anything like my one friend said he saw like lights in the sky or something that he thought was an alien. I know other people who have been like, oh yeah, I lived in a haunted house. I've never had anything like that.
I guess, I mean, like when I was a kid, like little things would happen around the house. Like, I don't know, but it could have been like, I don't know, gravity, but things would fall or whatever. The one encounter I had that felt like close to being a paranormal encounter was when one of our dogs died, and I was playing with we got a new dog, and I was playing with our new dog, and she suddenly like kind of freaked out, and I looked over and saw like a flash of like light or something. So I felt like we both sensed something in that moment, but who knows?
Yeah. We moved into the house we currently live in, and it was an estate sale. So I was like, oh, cool. Two people have died in this house, likely.
Yeah.
So I was like, if any house I've ever lived in was going to be haunted, it's the one I currently live in. But we have two dogs, and I've never had anything weird happen here.
Not yet.
Not yet. It'd be kind of weird if it like kicked in at a later date.
It could be like you talking about ghosts all day today that might awaken.
We watch a lot of horror movies, though. So I don't know.
I don't know. It's always like one. There has to be like a something to like trigger them somehow.
Right.
So I don't know. Maybe you'll paint a wall a certain color, and they'll be like, "Whoa."
That's what I kind of thought. I was like, well, when we start doing like crazy renovations, maybe we'll piss them off. But not yet.
Not yet. Well, yeah. Let's. I live in like a brand new building, so I kind of doubt anything would be haunting here.
Probably not. Yeah. I feel like apartments are generally pretty safe.
Yeah, I don't know why that is. It's always houses. Maybe people are more attached to their houses than to apartments.
That's probably it. You own property.
Yeah.
Yours.
Right. Because my last apartment, the building was like 100 years old, and people definitely died in that building.
Yeah.
So, I don't know.
Yeah, you never really see haunted apartment stories, though.
No.
Maybe
I feel like they must be out there.
Yeah. Steph's a really big thrifter. Likes a lot of antiques. So I'm waiting for her to bring home like some haunted object or something.
Because they can jump onto objects, ghosts.
Allegedly.
Yeah. Allegedly. Yeah. So I'd keep an eye out for
I did send that picture
sure.
in the Slack this morning of our mirror being all when we woke up. So I used to have this like really I know we're like dilly-dallying so much up here, but I used to have this really intense fear of mirrors.
Oh. Because
of the Bloody Mary story.
Oh, interesting. Would you just avoid them or
in the dark?
Oh, of course.
In the daytime I was fine, but I like even to this day I still get kind of weird if I catch myself in the mirror at night. I'm always afraid I'm gonna like do something and then the image in the mirror is gonna like move differently than the way I move.
Oh yeah. Like or you'll just look up and there'll be like someone behind you with glowing eyes or
we have our kitchen has like what I like to call a pie window. So right above our sink, there's a window and there's a ledge, but it just goes out onto our deck. So it's not like it's looking out at anything. But I'm always like, man, the most terrifying thing I think about when I get up at like 3 a.m. and I need a glass of water is if I look out the pie window and I just see like a person looking back at me.
Oh yeah, it'd be scary.
And then as soon as I have that thought, I'm like, I can't look now at all.
I just remembered actually, I can't even think about this one too, but I actually have heard voices at night, not in my childhood home, like conversation kind of happening. And my mom has heard it too. We've heard it on like the same night. And it sounds like party noise, kind of like someone's kind of standing on like the landing at the top of the stairs, kind of like just like chit-chatting softly. Can't make out any words. But yeah, that has happened in our house. So
okay. Yeah. So you've got some spooky stuff going on. So
yeah, I believe in ghosts. Do believe in ghosts.
Interesting.
Were
you religious growing up?
Not really, no.
Yeah, me neither. I don't know. I do believe in ghosts. I've watched a lot of like ghost hunting shows because they're really fun. But yeah, like I said, I've never experienced anything. So I've never experienced aliens either, though, and I'm very in on the aliens thing. So maybe a little bit of bias there.
Yeah. Well, like I said, anything could happen.
I was going to say, it's funny. You go somewhere in America. It's like, oh, this is the first whatever. There's, the first bar in Pittsburgh and it's been around for 150 years. And then you go to Europe and it's like, this is the first bar.
Yeah. Right.
Full stop.
Ever.
That's kind of what this feels like. It's been 800 something years since this thing was built.
That's wild. Yeah.
I mean, built, I say the original time. They had to rebuild it later.
Yeah.
It was a really popular spot because obviously it was right along like the port of Rye. So they had a lot of sailors coming in. And the Mermaid Inn originally was very cheap. They made their own ale in-house and they only charged a single penny for the night. Even with like adjusting for inflation and stuff, that's very cheap.
Yeah, I wonder what that would be. But
one medieval penny to today's money.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know what the average sailor got paid, but a penny was very affordable regardless. And then in 1377, the French raided the port of Rye and burned pretty much everything to the ground. Mermaid Inn obviously burnt down with everything else. It was made of wood, except for its cellars. And it took them a while to rebuild the city, but they did eventually get around to rebuilding it and including just rebuilding the Mermaid Inn in the exact same spot that it was in.
Perfect.
And that was like 1420s sometime. And then it underwent renovation again in the 16th century. But there's not really a lot of information about what was going on then. I think it was still just operating as an inn. They found evidence that in 1530, a group of Catholic priests who were fleeing from continental Europe to escape the Reformation had stayed at the Mermaid Inn. And the way they figured this out was kind of cool. That they saw the letters JHS inscribed on the oak panels of a room called Sin's Lounge, which stood for Jesus Hominum Salvator, which I believe translates to Jesus the Savior.
Sin, S-Y-N. But is that like a medieval spelling, do you think?
I don't know. I don't know. A lot of the rooms and stuff here seem like they're named after people. So Sin could have been someone.
Yeah. That's a cool last name.
It is a cool last name. There's a lot of this stuff seems really cool. I guess like the most like notable people who stayed at the Mermaid Inn were this group called the Hawkhurst Gang. They were smugglers. There were like 600 of them in this gang, and they stayed there.
Wow.
Throughout that's a massive gang.
Yeah, it's like an army almost.
I was gonna say, I don't know if gang is the right word at that point. Gang to me feels like it should be smaller, but yeah, they were massive gang of smugglers. And they use the Mermaid Inn basically as their like secondary base of operations. I guess there's like a series of tunnels underneath the inn. They would like hide all their stolen goods there. There was one tunnel that connected to another inn a couple streets over, the Old Bell Inn. And they would get into one of the inns. I forget which one. I think it was in the Mermaid Inn. It was like a revolving cupboard that led to the tunnel. Yeah.
Oh, I love that.
I don't know, like the construction of that just seems so weird to me because the cellars are from the original construction still.
Yeah.
So I guess the tunnels were just always there for some reason.
Maybe they were sharing supplies in the cellar between the two inns.
Maybe. I mean, yeah, the Mermaid Inn brewed ale, so maybe they like carry it over to the other inn or something.
Yeah. Makes sense.
Well, it worked out for them because they were able to use it for like quick getaways and to hide stuff. I found a quote from somebody like contemporary with them who just said, when the Hawkhurst gang were at the height of their pride and insolence, having seen them after successfully running a cargo of goods on the seashore, seated at the windows of this house, the Mermaid, carousing and smoking their pipes with their loaded pistols lying on the table before them, no magistrate daring to interfere with them.
That paints a picture.
Yeah, they basically ran the town.
Yeah.
And we'll get into it in the second half of this podcast, but they're kind of part of the reason that it's allegedly as haunted as it is, which makes sense.
Yeah, that sounds like they were probably a violent bunch.
Very. Very violent. Then from 1770 until the late 1900s, the inn was not functioning as an inn.
Just empty.
The record of it's weird. I know that in the 1840s, a man named Charles Poyle just used the inn as his house. He just owned it and operated it as a house. Wow. I have no idea what happened for the 70 years before that or the next like 70 years after that. I was really struggling to find any information about what bridged that time gap. I think it was just private property. They kind of got passed around until like 1913. This woman named May Aldington, notable for, I don't know this author, but Richard Aldington is an author. This was his mother, bought the inn and she operated it as a club. And apparently it was very popular because a lot of people, including like Dame Ellen Terry, Lord Alfred Douglas, A.C. and E.F. Benson, and Rupert Brooke all came by and visited the inn or the club at the time. Then in World War II, it housed a bunch of Canadian officers. And then after the war, one of those officers named just L. Wilson, couldn't find his first name anywhere. He acquired the inn shortly afterwards. In 1951, the English Heritage listed the Mermaid Inn at grade 2, meaning it was deemed as a quote unquote particularly important building of more than special interest. In 1982, the exterior of the inn was also used in the Monty Python film Yellowbeard, and that year they also hosted a private luncheon to the Queen. And then since then, it's just been back to operating as an inn.
Cool. Storied history.
There's a lot there, but like also not. Like, you know what I mean? Like, presumably it was in operation. A lot of people were in and out and living there and yeah, dying there. It was private property for a while, but there's just kind of these like gaps in the history where it's just like, I don't know what happened then.
Yeah. Well, with the building of the history as long as it has, that makes sense.
Yeah. Things
are forgotten over the years, except the ghosts. Remember everything.
Yeah, obviously, like the reason we're talking about this is the hauntings or the alleged hauntings at the Mermaid Inn. Just wanted to give a little touch on the history of it to explain it, if anywhere is going to be haunted, it's a place like this, right?
Yeah,
like
so old.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking 800 years of history. A violent gang of criminals occupied it. Mm-hmm. It's kind of like the prime location for a haunting. What I think is really interesting is guests have reported seeing like several different spirits here. The owner has said that she's never experienced anything paranormal in the past 40 years since she's owned it.
That's interesting because as the owner, you could either like lean into it and like know that would bring certain people to your inn. Or if you don't want those kind of people, I guess you could just be like, oh no. It's never happened, even if it had.
I mean, I think they do lean into it because it's on their website. It talks about hauntings. And she said in an interview that like she's never seen anything herself, but guests have told her about things. And she's like, oh, I mean, if that many people are saying it, it must be true.
I mean, she's presumably not staying at the inn overnight. The owner, like, right?
I guess probably not. But I don't know. Some of the ghost sightings are really interesting. They were featured on the show Most Haunted in 2002, which is sort of where this like really blew up. A crew from The Sun later stayed, the very reputable news source, The Sun.
Do know The Sun, yes.
Yeah, later stayed in the hotel. That story's so funny. They set up like a night vision camera to record overnight. This is like analog days still, so it had a tape in it. And they found the next day that the tape had ejected itself and they didn't record any footage.
Oh, weird.
Which is weirdly convenient.
Well, be a strong ghost too to eject a tape camera.
Yeah. They said you needed the hard push of a button to eject the tape. So it's not like it could have it doesn't typically eject on its own. But again, it's The Sun, so we have to take their word for it.
I see. Yeah.
But that said, there are a lot of other stories. If you're staying in room 16 at the Mermaid Inn, guests have reported saying that they've seen the spirits of two men engaged in a duel.
Oh, that would be a shocking thing to see. It's not just someone like floating through.
It's like my favorite story because imagine like waking up in the middle of the night and seeing two like medieval looking guys just sword fighting.
Yeah. Wow.
And then apparently after some time, it ends with one of the men being stabbed, dragged into the adjacent room and thrown into the basement through a trapdoor.
It's funny because like for one ghost, this is like a triumphant like thing to replay every night. The other one, not so much.
Yeah. I wonder if it's like, do you think it's just like the same set of circumstances repeating itself? Or do you think every night it's like
slightly different?
One of them wins? Yeah.
Oh, no, it has to be the same one every night because that's the kind of memory a ghost would cling to.
Yeah, for sure. It's just such a vivid visual.
Yeah. I can't imagine seeing that. I mean, if I saw that, I'd be like,
yeah, I mean, like a lot of the other ones are your typical, like, oh, I think I saw a lady in white or like a man passed through the hallway or like something fell off a shelf or like we took a photo and there were orbs in it. This is like, I saw two men fighting. Yeah,
that would leave an impression for sure. Ghosts aren't usually like, not that I'm like an expert, but ghosts aren't usually such like solid, like it's often like you said, like lights or like cold.
I mean,
or things
they're pretty
like
incorporeal by definition.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's my favorite one. And I really hope it's true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We should do an investigative mission to the Mermaid Inn, stay in room 16, get a better camera.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, some of the other stuff is just like people have reported seeing a lady in white. They've said they've seen like a guy, the spirit of a man walking through doors that are closed. Occasionally, he might have like a woman or children behind him. Another one comes back to the Hawkhurst gang, which naturally. But they say that in room 5, maids who work at the inn to this day refuse to go in there alone. They only ever go in groups because they are afraid to encounter the spirit of a maid who was murdered in that room. And allegedly, this maid was dating a member of the Hawkhurst gang. And the other members were like, oh, she knows too much. She's going to rat us out. And so they murdered her. Not the one she was dating.
Oh.
Like other guys in the gang.
Jeez.
Which is like...
It's an intense gang.
Not a good way to hold a gang together either.
No, really. I mean, maybe actually it is a good way because no one's getting ratted out.
I mean, yeah. I don't know if there was any indication that she was actually going to rat them out, though. I think it was just like you had one really talkative guy in the gang dating this maid. And they were like, oh, we got to stop that. And they just murdered her.
Wow. Sounds like he should have gotten murdered.
That's what I'm saying. I'd be pretty pissed if somebody murdered my girlfriend.
Well, especially if you were the one like blabbing about everything all the time.
Right. I have to assume they didn't have women in the gang.
Probably not.
It was 1700s.
Yeah.
So, what other stories did I find there? Yeah, we got the Orbs of Light, that, that stuff. One employee quit because of the hauntings.
Oh, that's always sort of like,
It's a little suspect.
Yeah. If it's that bad that someone's like, I can't even be here anymore, walk out.
I mean, that would be me. That'd be me 100%.
Because of hauntings?
Yeah. What a good excuse to quit a job.
There's too many ghosts here and I can't stand it. I quit.
I know you don't typically get unemployment if you quit a job. You usually have to get fired. Do you think they make an exception for this place was haunted?
Absolutely.
The story goes here that this worker was cleaning off the fireplace, and then at the opposite end of the room behind their back, a bunch of like bottles started flying off the shelf. I think like from behind the bar, just flying off the shelf. And the employee was like, yep, I'm done.
I'm out of here. Well, that's,
See ya.
Yeah, I think that would do it.
Also, because the other end of that is like you have to now clean up the mess. And you're like, I'm not getting paid enough.
It's like this employee like knocked over all these bottles and then they were like, it was a ghost and I quit. It's too scary. Someone else clean this up.
It's a good way to do it. There are a couple other weird stories here, too, though. Several people who've stayed in a room called the James Room said that they woke up in the morning to find that their clothes were completely soaked, despite the fact that they had just like laid them out on a bedside chair.
That's weird.
I don't know what the situation is there.
Maybe someone in that room drowned at one point. I don't know. Spitballing here.
Yeah. The issue with a lot of the ghost stories with the Mermaid Inn is like, aside from actually just the murdered maid, there's no like record of who the person might have been. Like even the two guys who were apparently fighting to the death, I couldn't find anywhere like who people think they might have been. It's
like there were so many characters passing through the inn over the years. It just like, it was not even noteworthy or newsworthy. It
has to be like as you said, like we were saying earlier, when a place is haunted, it's usually good because somebody was like very attached to it. The Mermaid Inn's really interesting because it's like, there's like a couple, like if you're a murdered maid, yeah, you're probably going to haunt the place where you were murdered. But like, yeah, a lot of these other people.
Yeah, if you died in a duel there, then that makes sense that you would haunt it.
Right. But only one of the guys died.
Yeah, I don't know what the other one is doing there. Maybe the other one.
There for.
Maybe the other one is like part of the first one's imagination. He just like is reliving this.
Maybe.
We don't know how ghosts work.
I was going to say, what was that first ghost doing the whole time? Like waiting for the other guy to die so that he could just fight him to the death over and over.
Yeah.
He's like, one of these days he'll be back. I know he will.
Maybe. I mean, there could be so many reasons.
Yeah. People have said they've seen like ghosts standing over the foot of their bed. All the typical haunted location stuff going on here. I don't buy it.
Oh, I definitely buy it.
I don't know. It all just
The
seems so
close thing is a little, I don't know.
That one's weird.
See that. That's very weird. But I don't know. It's an old inn. A lot of things happened there. Why not?
I don't know. I just feel like I'm lacking evidence and like record of anything.
Well, this gang had 600 members and they seem to have gotten up to some shenanigans.
It's almost too perfect, though. It's almost too like, yeah, obviously this place would be haunted.
I think old stuff in Europe is often haunted. And this place had more,
most of Europe's just haunted everywhere.
Most of Europe's haunted. And this place had a lot of people coming and going. So why not?
Yeah.
I'm into it. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I see. This is fun. We're switching the roles now. I'm a little bit more skeptical of the ghost stuff. I've seen it done so many times. It's so easy for people to fake ghost stuff. And then like, especially like in this situation, it's like, oh, come stay at the haunted Mermaid Inn. It's like, I bet you'd like me to, wouldn't you?
You're going to lean into it. You'd
love me to stay at your inn.
Yeah. But I don't know. I believe it. I believe it could be exaggerated as well, but I'm sure there's like little things. I'm not saying
it's impossible. I'm saying somebody needs to pay for me to go there and see it with my own eyes.
There you go. Yeah, you should insist on that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's the same reason I think the earth is flat, you know?
So someone can pay you to fly up and
to
check
go to
it
space
out.
so I can see it for myself. Yeah.
Nice. I don't know. I mean, I'm like open to the idea that there's things that we can't explain in the world, both in like a spiritual way and also in like a, outer space way. I'm open to that idea.
Yeah.
I tend to believe more in like, I think ghosts could maybe exist in one way or the other.
I mean, I like the idea of ghosts and just in general things that can't be explained. I'm a big cryptid head as well. Because I think it's more fun. I think it's more fun to live life that way.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to be the naysaying skeptic at everything because that's just so boring and close-minded.
Yeah. And there is some weird cryptid stuff out there. I think we mentioned this before, that it's one that looks like a pair of pants, the Fresno Nightcrawler.
Oh, yeah. They're crazy.
The pictures of that, it's like really weird.
So
you can't really, like, what the hell is that? But I don't know.
I mean, we're going to be talking about Mothman later this month as well.
Oh, that's right. That's a
or
weird
maybe
one.
early next month at this rate. But it's coming up. We're talking about Mothman. So I like the idea of all that. I just need, with ghost stuff, a little bit more convincing, I think.
Mm-hmm. Sure. Well, maybe once you have a paranormal encounter.
I think that would make a difference for sure. I'd almost be disappointed if nothing in my life happens paranormal.
Mm-hmm. Do you know how old the house is you live in?
I think it was built in like the 40s.
It's oldish, I guess.
Yeah. It is only ever the people who owned it before us were like the people who built the house.
Oh, I see. So it hasn't been very much time for...
Yeah. But they did both die.
In the house?
I think so.
My sister and I always got weird feelings. We grew up in like a big old house in the woods, and they had a billiard room with a pool table. And we always got really freaked out in that room. And then there was a guest room we got really freaked out in for like no reason.
Huh. I feel you know when you're in like a room with a weird vibe.
Yeah. It's interesting because the next couple are all a bit different. So like, Enfield Haunting is not exactly a ghost. It's more like a demon, sort of. Well, I don't know. For possession. Sleepy Hollow is like a scary story.
Yeah.
And and the Mothman is like a cryptid. I guess he's also kind of a ghost that does stuff, but.
Cryptid, I think.
Yeah.
A harbinger of doom, some say.
Wait, is the Mothman the one that like lives by the bridge, or is that someone else? Okay.
Point Pleasant, yeah. Virginia was there before the bridge collapsed. I don't even need to write the outline. I know that story by memory.
I think I'm actually thinking of someone else who also lives by a bridge and like haunts teenagers on...
The Goat Man?
No, it's the Rabbit Man.
Oh, the Bunny Man.
Bunny Man. Yeah. Yes. That's what I was thinking of. Yeah.
Yeah, there's also the axe-wielding Goat Man. There's two of those. There's two Goat Men. There's a lot of haunted bridges. My friend and I did a podcast episode about that. Yeah.
Huh.
Crybaby Bridge.
Oh, there's like a bunch of crybaby bridges, aren't there?
Mm-hmm. That's the one. That's the one where you like park your car in the middle of it and you can hear a baby crying.
Mm-hmm. We have a post on that.
God. Yeah, I think we have a post on like all that stuff. Haunted bridges, Goat Man. I wrote one on the Goat Man. That was fun.
I think anything is like, cryptid, spooky, ghosts. We've generally covered.
Every time our editor asks me for pitches, which happens very infrequently, I always have like 5 cryptid things we haven't talked about ready to go. Like, all right, we got the Dover Demon. We haven't talked about the Dover Demon yet.
Mine are always like, this obscure guy in history did this really weird thing. How about that?
Mine's like, here's this thing about Japan, and here's cryptids. That's my pitches every time.
Nice. Well,
yeah. And if you're interested, listeners, in any of that stuff, head on over to www.allthat'sinteresting.com. And as we get into the month of October, we are going to be publishing a bunch of spooky stuff, all related to what we've talked about today. We've got a whole thing on the Mermaid Inn there. All the stuff we're doing coming up, we have posts related to all of that there.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah. And sign up for our newsletter at allthat'sinteresting.com/sign-up. And become a member of the website at allthat'sinteresting.com/membership.
Yes. And as always, we love to hear from people, your thoughts. If you have ideas about things we can cover on the site or on the podcast, you can send us an email, podcast@allthat'sinteresting.com, or call us. The number is 929-526-3029. And you can leave us a voicemail with your thoughts or whatever. And we'd love to hear from people.
Yeah. If anyone's been to the Mermaid Inn, had an experience and you want to share that, I would love to hear a firsthand account. I'd love to see photos taken there.
Or any haunted,
I was looking online, I couldn't
really
find any. Yeah. Or any haunted location, really.
Yeah. Your stories of hauntings.
Yeah. I would love to have a segment of just like sharing other people's stories.
Yeah, that'd be fantastic.
Yeah, you can find us on Instagram and TikTok at Real History Uncovered. You can find us on Facebook. The page is History Revealed. And also the All That's Interesting page is also on Facebook.
Yes. Yep. And there's always new stuff coming out there on the site, everywhere, all the time. And next week is Sleepy Hollow, right? Or is
Sleepy Hollow, which, Sleepy Hollow is next. And Kara, our editor, Kara will be joining us for that.
That's going to be really interesting and fun. And I'm excited to discuss that in depth.
Yeah. Yeah, is it just the story of Sleepy Hollow, or is there a real story behind the story?
It's the story, and then the way I said it was like the story, and then where the story might have come from, in history and in like legend, basically.
Okay, It's been a while since I've read the Legend of Sleepy Hollow or seen like any.
I don't think I'd ever read it, and I had to sort of educate myself on the story before writing the outline.
Yeah. It's a fun story.
It is a fun story. America's
Headless
first ghost
Horseman
story.
is iconic. Is it really?
Considered as such.
Very cool.
Yes, indeed. So that's next week. And then we'll dive into more spooky stuff for the rest of the month. And beyond, I'm sure, too.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, cool. Well, then, until next time. And we're going to the town of Sleepy Hollow at that point, which is a real town.
Is it?
Interestingly, I'll just add this little factoid. The town was called North Tarrytown until the 90s, and then they renamed themselves Sleepy Hollow after the story. And now it's called Sleepy Hollow.
Until the 1990s?
Yes, until the 1990s.
Okay. Wow. Yeah. Weird.
And the story came out in I want to say 1820 something.
Yeah, so, I was going to say it was like a while ago.
Yeah. Anyway, so all that's coming and more in future episodes.
Yeah. Just grab yourselves a pumpkin spice latte and strap in.